Now, live from the 13 Now Digital News Desk, this is the Friday Night Fever Afterburn, sponsored by Peden Heating and Air Conditioning.
Welcome to Friday Night Fever Afterburn. Second week of the playoffs are in the book. We only have 3 teams left standing. 6 teams started tonight. Only 3 remain of our local teams. Kaylee, tell us about some of those games tonight.
Well, for the third time this season, Blountstown and Port St. Joe. Blountstown picked up the win 14-13, a 1-point win after Port St. Joe missed an extra point. And then you have Baker visiting Chipley. That was a close game in the beginning, but Chipley pulls away 39-20. Cottondale and Sneeds. Sneeds dominated in this game. 42-8 was that final. And Holmes County hanging on with Northview 34-26.
And then we got 2. Well, no, we don't got 2 more tonight. We had 4 games, 6 teams. I'm already confused. 4 games and 6 teams tonight. Bloodstown 14-30. Kaylee's already laughing at me. Let's take us to our game of the night, and it definitely was our game of the night. 14-13, a 1-point victory for the Tigers. Tell us about this atmosphere. You've been talking about it all night long.
Oh my gosh.
Tell us about this game.
This was probably 100% the best high school football game I've been to probably ever, including my whole high school career. I had so much fun. I was texting you, not wanting to leave, hoping to stay as long as possible. And when I had to leave, I hated it. But it was just, kind of had a slow start. Started off with the turnover pretty quick into Port St. Joe's drive. Exciting, though, for Blountstown. Picked up that 1 touchdown. A couple interceptions here and there, a couple turnovers, but great plays like that. Jordan Pride stepped up tonight. There was just a lot on the line, obviously, for both teams. This is already a big rivalry between these 2 teams. So playing for the 3rd time this season with the stakes so high, everyone was just so into it. A couple times the players, there was unsportsmanlike or players just continuing out the play until a little bit after the whistle was blown just to make sure they got what they wanted. But, it was just an insane game. Port St. Joe in the second half, or in the first half, right before halftime, tried to get a Hail Mary to get a touchdown, slipped through DJ's Oliver's hand, went into halftime 14-7, but then in the second half, 2 interceptions, gave the ball back to Port St. Joe, and that put them up. Of course, they missed that extra point, and that would be kind of the final straw for them. But, it was such an exciting game. The fans were into it. The sidelines were electric. The players were all into it. It was so exciting. And interesting to see also, both teams played really well. Port St. Joe contained the ball, had possession of the ball for majority of the game. Slow drives down the field. Defenses were very strong, but, it was just, I would go to this game, every night. It's like a movie. I would just, rewatch it a million times because I had so much fun.
Well, what a game it was. That's exactly what Coach Jordan said afterward. What a game. He's looking forward to next week, but he's still feeling that adrenaline rush after that one tonight. 14-13. Doesn't get closer to that. And These are 2 teams that we knew right off the bat. Both these teams are kind of deserving to make it to the Final Four. This really was like a Final Four matchup, and you hate to see the season end for one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So many great seniors on both sides. The careers of DJ Oliver and Lawan Zakara. There's so many players on both sides that you just hate to see their careers end, but also exciting for them because we know that they'll be playing next year. Lawan for Naval Academy and DJ Oliver for South Florida, amongst others, for Port St. Joe. So a great year for them. But we're going to head on over to, first let's look at the comments a little bit, because I know we got a lot of Chipley, a lot of Blountstown fans in here tonight.
Big night for the Tigers.
Big night for the Tigers. Yes, any Tigers. The Blountstown Tigers, the Chipley Tigers. I know we were talking about Tigers, Tiger Sharks. We've been saying it all year long. They played 3 times, and we're still getting, mixed up with all of that.
Sometimes.
But, a great victory for both Tigers tonight. We're going to talk about that game a little bit. We got a lot of Chipley Tigers fans in here. I know they're ready to see some of these highlights. A 39-21. They played Baker in the region finals last year. This one, the region semifinals. And man, 11-0, those Tigers. They were undefeated coming into it. Slow start. Baker scored first. We saw this fumble right out the gate. Caleb Wagner, he does everything. Playing defense, running back, second leading rusher in the state. We'll get to the top leading rusher in the state eventually. But, Caleb Wagner, talk about an incredible high school career. He's not even somebody that we cover, but you hate to see his high school career end because he's just been remarkable over the last few seasons. But Chipley, they came out, they responded with the blocked extra point, and then, they hand off to Caden Kennedy, and he fumbles. They go right back to him because they have no, hesitation in giving him the ball. He's somebody that, Coach Buchanan was saying this week could be one of those, 2,000-yard rushers like a Caleb Wagner or a Jason Patterson if they hadn't been beating all their teams by, 3-4 scores in every single game this year. He didn't even play the second half in most games this year, so that's something that really stood out there. But Chipley, they pull ahead in the second half, scoring 32 points, and that's just something that this team is capable of. Is they have the defense, they can really hold the brakes, but the offense just kicks it up to the next gear. Players all over the field. What did you see from this one tonight?
Well, something I feel like was somewhat evident tonight, going into half 7-6. A lot of times I feel like Chipley can really just match the level that their opponents are. They kind of play to that level. Obviously, they gain a lead at some point in the game, but I feel like that's crucial. Sometimes, it gets a little scary going into halftime, just 1 point ahead Baker. But they just really match the level of their opponents a lot of times, and then, they see the success later on. But that's something that'll be interesting, I think, with next week. If they could really just kind of start out the gate matching with Northview, I think that would be crucial for them next week. But, yeah, great to see Chipley pull out 39-20 dominating in the second half. I hate that we didn't get to really see any of that, but I bet there was a lot of exciting plays. So, great win for the Tigers. Sad I haven't, seen them since I think week 2 and 3 of the high school football season, but, talented team, a lot of talented players on that team, like you said.
Right, and that's going to, set us up for a very, very nice matchup next week with Chipley and Northview. But before we get to that, we're going to head up to Sneads because that one, another undefeated team, Sneads, and similar to Chipley, they're a team that a lot of, people are saying this year is like, oh yeah, they're undefeated, but who have they beat? Who have they beat? And it's every single team they play, they win by like 5+ scores. It's, they go up 42-0 and then they just rest everybody. And it's like, that's the difference. That is the difference. That is the difference between a good team, a great team is, even if your schedule doesn't show, isn't one of the strongest in the state, if you're beating people by 5+ scores every single game, you are a good team.
Yeah.
And that right there very well could be the best player in the entire region.
With 5 scores.
Right. So Jason Patterson, JP5, he does everything. What did you see from this game tonight?
Well, I expected what we saw from Sneads. I expected them to be explosive. Jason Patterson, scoring like he did tonight. But I was, I expected this, but I also felt, Cottondale's been very explosive the past couple weeks too. So I was, hoping to see them able to have some explosive plays in the game. They started out pretty strong, but then it just kind of fell for them there. Talked to couple of the players and Coach Obert on Thursday, and so it was great to see them. First 8-win season since 2013, only had 5 wins over the past 3 seasons, so heartbreaking loss for the Hornets, but it was really exciting to see them have such a successful season, kind of just snuck through and surprised everyone.
Right, and like we mentioned, we were like, this could be one of those games where it's like, like
100 points.
100 points scored between the two teams because Cottondale's been averaging 40 points per game this year, and that's got to be a testament to Sneads right there. They held them scoreless. Cottondale didn't even score until, later in the second half, but they came out right out of the gate, handed it off to their main man, jumping on top. When you're in the second round of the playoffs and you're still resting some players in the second half,
yeah,
that's going to just show you the type of team that Sneads is.
Well, and defense was Coach Thomas's, biggest concern heading into the playoffs throughout the season. And so to see them put on that kind of performance, I think some people will probably still say, well, it's Cottondale. But like you said, they've been averaging 40 points per game. So I think, the Pirates definitely are happy with their defense tonight.
Right, and a very bright future for Cottondale as well. They got some young players over there, some very talented young players.
Experienced.
Young and experienced. We talked about that yesterday. Yeah. But We're going to have to look forward to seeing them play next year. Obviously, some great seniors on their team as well. We saw Harris getting the fumble tonight, a great high school career for him.
Great ending for him,
Great ending for him. Obviously, he would have liked to win, but Sneed's, that right there is a tough matchup. One we're going to talk about, but we don't have highlights of, is Northview and Holmes County. That one right there, you just look at the scoreboard and it's like, wow, 26-34. I just had, Coach Lee text me and say that his bunch outplayed Northview in every way, except for the scoreboard. They had 3 fumbles and, that right there, just Holmes. You look at the scoreboard, and if you look at Northview's record the entire year, you look at their, who they've played and the scores.
Teams in our area.
Obviously, Bluntstown, a team that's going to the region final. Clearly, they were banged up at the time. It might be a, different story right now. Bay High, Northview has just rolled through so many teams this year, and for Holmes County to put up that kind of fight on the road, I mean, obviously, they're hurting tonight. Their season is over. A lot of, those seniors, their high school careers are over. But Northview was considered, I kept on saying, the juggernaut. The juggernaut. Yeah. Northview is incredible, and they went within 1 score tonight. So those Holmes County Blue Devils, you guys should be proud. What do you think of that one, just looking at the scoreboard of that?
Obviously, I hate to see Holmes County lose, but that score actually makes me so happy. They really proved that they're a contender. And it's the 4 letters. That was an aggressive game for them. So, their final game, they got after them aggressively. Obviously, it didn't turn out how anyone would have wanted. But, I think this was really impressive to see Holmes County put on that kind of game against Northview. And maybe, give some hope for the future of other teams in our area playing Northview next week.
Right. And before we get into this matchup, going to go back to the comments because I know we got a lot of proud Chipley, a lot of proud Bluntstown, a lot of proud Sneed's fans in here congratulating Marcus Buchanan and those Tigers. That's right. I mean, last year they were the last team standing going to the Final Four. This year they're 1 win away from the Final Four. And if you look at that, we saw what Chipley did to Holmes County earlier this year. And you can't equate a game where Holmes County plays so much higher above their level. But when you just look at that score and you see what Chipley did to Holmes County, you're kind of like, all right, so this team that's unbeatable up there in Bratt, Florida, they look beatable.
They were scary to see after the final game of the season. Bay visiting, that game scared me for the potential of any other teams that would go on to face Northview. But, I mean, this game, I think, gave us some hope.
Absolutely, and we see a lot more congratulation of the Tigers talking about those matchups for next week. Best team winning up in Bluntstown. Man, those teams, they are incredible. John Bratt calling his dark horse Madison County. Not wrong, they're making they've been sneaking along. Holmes County will be back. They're a real young team. That is right. We talk about the quarterback, looking a lot like the quarterback from last year.
He's grown a lot this season,
He's from week 1 to right now. He has just been remarkable, and he's a pretty great baseball player too. So we'll get to see him in the spring. But everybody getting healthy for Bluntstown.
Well, and speaking of dark horse, and speaking of Bluntstown, I guess we'll have to give props for you for your dark horse.
I wasn't even going to say it. I was just going to let all the comments speak for themselves. I won't even pat myself on the back. No, I got it. I will say Bluntstown. I knew they were going to be getting healthy. I won't go too hard into it. But yes, I called Bluntstown. Hate to see Port St. Joe. Great season for them, but Bluntstown saw this coming from a mile away. This is going to be a fun one next week up in Sneed's, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about those matchups next week because we got some fun ones. The undefeated Northview Chiefs, the undefeated Chipley Tigers. That is going to be up in Bratt, Florida. Last week, Northview didn't have their game broadcast on the network. This week, they did. We unfortunately will not be able to go that far up to Bratt. That's about a 3-hour drive for us. Won't be able to get those highlights in. But if it's on the network, we may be able to get some highlights in the show next week. Letting everybody know right now, this was the final week of Friday Night Fever, unfortunately. We will have the highlights for sure of the Sneed's and Bluntstown game on News 13 next week. Whether it's Friday Night Fever or not, we will have that in our sports segment next week in the 10 o'clock show. Sneed's and Bluntstown. What do you think of this matchup right here?
Yeah. The crazy thing, if you would look at the record, undefeated Sneed's and then, obviously physicality, they're not banged up right now, but they had some lumps in this season, but they've clearly overcome them, and Blountstown is looking better than I think anyone could ever imagine. They looked really good tonight. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. There's still some smack talk around Port St. Joe tonight, saying Sneads has still had a cushiony schedule. They haven't played the toughest opponents. So, I think this will be a testament. If they can pull off a win over Blountstown, then I think everyone will, stop talking and saying they are legit. Or Blountstown will really give Sneads a run for their money and, put their season to an end. So it could go either way. I think it's going to be another exciting game. I hope it's going to be, if it could top tonight, then you might never get me out of Sneads. I might just stay there.
Right. And obviously there's so many talented, incredible players on both of these teams. And, twice this year we've had DJ Oliver versus the Jordan Pride, these two big Division I type level players. Next week, we're going to have Jason Patterson.
JP4 and JP5.
Both juniors, mind you. Both juniors. So both of them will be back next year. That's a scary thought to anybody around the Panhandle. If they were this good as juniors, just imagine what they're going to be as seniors. And one thing that we did talk about was Jordan Pride. They have so many pieces over there, but that was just kind of that last piece to get them over the edge.
Yeah.
And that's... and a lot of people, move in the transfer. No, he was here last year. He, would have been here if he hadn't moved on to IMG Academy. And they honestly would be even better. If Andre Williams, had not torn his ACL in the summertime, Blountstown really could be right there at the top of the state with those two level guys. Because Andre Williams is probably, in all honesty, probably the best player on their team as a high school player. I would say Jordan probably has more of that, Division I college level. But Williams, he was the best player on their team for all of towards the end of last season, and looked like he was going to be the best player this year. So that really would have helped them. We hate to see that his season was not able to be played out. But those Tigers, they're healthy and they are ready to go. We got Chipley versus Northview, Blountstown versus Sneads. Yeah. We're wrapping up the season. We appreciate you guys always coming on here and watching. This may be the last Friday Night Fever, Afterburn. Although we did talk about with Spencer, possibly after the entire season's over, whenever everybody is finished from our local area, no matter who goes to the Final Four, no matter who finishes up, if somebody wins a state title, if somebody if they all fall in the Final Four, whatever happens, of doing one more Friday Night Fever Afterburn recap. Now, whether it's on a Friday night or whether we record it throughout the week and post it, we talked about doing an update, maybe possibly having the coach or the players of the last team standing, whether that's Blountstown or Sneads or Chipley, no matter who that might be, maybe getting some coaches on and kind of have one last Friday Night Fever Afterburn. You guys got to let us know, if that's something that you would like to see. We would love to bring some coaches, bring some players, get some attention, and have one final last kind of hurrah of the season before we get going until next fall. But for tonight, that's going to do it for us. If you want to go see the highlights from tonight's game, head over to mypanhandle.com, click on the sports tab. Friday Night Fever is over for the year. We will no longer have that show on WMBB till next fall.
Cue the sad music.
Very sad music, but that's going to do it for us. We'll see you maybe next year, but we'll definitely have the game next week.